Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be sharing my views on effective presentation tips. So let me take you to the roadmap of my presentation. So first, I'll be dealing with the slides where I'll be talking about certain do's and don'ts of how to prepare the slides. Second, I'll be dealing with the organization of ideas. And third, I'll deal with the style of presentation. So let us move on to the slides first. So here I'll be talking about certain do's and don'ts of how to prepare the slides. So first we will deal with the slide design. So here I have a sample design, and as you can see, this design does not increase the visibility of the content. The audience cannot read what is there in the content, so it decreases the visibility. And therefore, I would say that we should go for a slide design that increases the visibility of the content, as we can draw the attention of the audience towards the content, and moreover it enhances the clarity, and also we can add images to give more emphasis to the points that we have added. So having said this, let us now move on to the slide title. So here I have an example over here. So as you can see, because it is a slide title, so I have increased the font size, but I'm not able to draw the attention of the audience towards the keyword of the title. So if I have a slide title of this manner, then obviously I'm able to draw the attention of the audience towards the keyword, and that is introduction. So I know that my audience has understood that I'll be dealing with how to write the introduction. So let us now move on to the next topic, that is inserting images. So most of the time we think that if we add colorful images, it enhances the presentation. So without even considering that what kind of content we have written, we simply add the images and it does not match with the content. So sometimes we even go for images like this, a GIF image, where it is animated. This also is, if it is not related to the content, it doesn't make sense. So could be quite distracting, and moreover, it could be misleading to the audience, and thus it could be confusing. So instead, we should add images that helps us to reinforce the ideas, that helps us to give more information about the ideas, and also help the audience to grab the interest of the audience and retain information at the same time. And in formal presentation, it becomes essential to use images, but then those images that are actually helpful in enhancing the information, those images have to be selected. So now let us move on to the image type. So as you can see over here, this type of images is of poor resolution. And if we include poor resolution images, then it can actually be very distracting for the audience, demotivating for the audience, and the audience will not be interested in the presentation at all. And suppose we have another image like this. So this image, even though it is of high resolution, but because both the types of images, they have different texture. So again, it could be very demotivating for the audience to go through the presentation. So therefore, it can land up in poor uniformity as well as poor resolution. So therefore, we should include images like this where they belong to the same texture, and at the same time they have a high resolution. And so therefore these high resolution images can draw the attention of the audience, can keep the audience motivated to listen to a presentation, and of course it also matches with the background. So having understood this, let us now move on to the content. So while we are adding the content, we mostly think that if we do not include complete sentences, then it will be very difficult for the audience to read it or to understand what is being presented. That is not the idea, because when we add complete sentences, the audience, they do not have time to read through the sentence. So therefore, if we identify only keywords and add the points in this manner, then the audience can read the content as well as they can listen to the presentation of the presenter, and that is very important. So let us now move on to adding the points. So most of the time we feel like adding, too many points in one particular slide. So one topic, we add all the points in one slide. But this actually is becomes very heavy for the audience, because the audience, they don't want to be glued to one particular slide for a very long time. They want variation. They want some changes in the slide, and that can keep the audience drawn to your presentation. So therefore, you should include only 4 points per slide, and see to it that the points, if they exceed beyond 4 points, we can go on, move ahead to the next slide. So in this particular the slide, as we can see, we have added, many points over here, more than 4 points. And moreover, there is no space between the points. So therefore, the blank space that ought to be there between the points is missing. And this becomes very clumsy. It becomes difficult for the audience to read the points. So if we add these points in this manner, that is, we leave space between the points, it becomes easier for the audience to read and also to understand the points. So this becomes quite interesting. So now let us move on to the font style. So if you select a font style like this, for a formal presentation, it is definitely not applicable. But otherwise, also when we select a font style like this, even if it in an informal presentation, if we include a font style like this, it does not enhance the readability of the audience. And therefore, we need to add a font style that is readable, and also it is a formal font style. Now let us move on to the next type, that is a font size. Now in font size, most of the time we think from our perspective, that is, we are able to read the slide. So we do not think from the perspective of the audience. So it is very important that we think from the perspective of the audience. The audience, they should be able to read from a distance. So therefore, we should maintain the 30-40 rule, and it increases the clarity of the points, and it also leads to uniformity. And we should see to it that we avoid all capital letters when we are including a slide. In the sense, we can keep the title of the slide in all capital letters, whereas the content, we can keep it in sentence case, and see to it that the font size can be increased. So if we have a font size like this, so appropriate font size, where the audience can read from a distance, it is absolutely clear there is space in between the points, and of course, it definitely gives more clarity of information. So now let us move on to whether we should use animations while writing the points. Animations are necessary, but we should be very careful in how we use animations, because most of the time, people think that if we add all the animations, or too many animations, or more than one animations in one particular slide, it leads to better engagement of the audience. That is not so, because it can be very distracting for the audience if we add more than one animations. So it is better if we add animations, but we use it sparingly. So for example, if we use animations like this, so after the presenter has shown this particular point, he can present the point, he can give more explanation about the point, and then he can move on to the next point, and he can give explanation of the next point, and then he can move on to the third point. In this way, the presentation becomes more exciting. Also, it becomes more interesting for the audience, as they are focused on one particular point. They listen to the explanation, then they move on to the next point. Rather than reading all the points, they can become very confused. So let us now move on to the next aspect, that is organization of ideas, and certain do's and don'ts that we should keep in mind. So when we are organizing ideas, we are actually logically arranging them in a sequence. So therefore, we should divide the content into meaningful units, and we should develop a flow of ideas, and we should also remain consistent. So I have a sample for you over here. So in this particular sample, the first slide, the title of the first slide is "Let us talk about games." Then the next topic is the next slide topic is logical games, board games, problem solving games. The third title of the slide is "Here is a quote on games." And the fourth title of the slide is "Engaging and involving learners helps in cognition." And the fifth is "The need for learner engagement." Now, as we can see that the ideas, they are not quite related to one another. It is quite haphazardly arranged. If the ideas are arranged haphazardly, it becomes difficult for the learners to understand the flow of the content. So therefore, if we can arrange it in this manner, so we can start with the need for learner engagement, why we should engage the learners, and then we can talk about how we can engage the learners, that is by introducing games, and we can give a difference between games versus activities. So here it is logically arranged, and moreover the flow is maintained, and thus the learners can, the audience can understand how, they can understand the content, and they can be interested in the delivery of the presenter. So now let us move on to the third topic, that is the style, where I'll be talking about certain do's and don'ts. Now let us go for a sample over here. As you can see, the presenter is busy presenting, but the audience, she does not have any eye contact with the audience, and the audience, they are looking at the presentation, but they are not having developing that interest in the presentation. Whereas in this particular slide, you can see that this person is having eye contact with the audience, and moreover, he is also drawing the attention of the audience towards what graphical images he has put in, and he is also trying to explain those images. So from this sample, you can understand that it is very important to maintain eye contact with the audience, and moreover, not only maintain eye contact, but we also have to shift our eye contact from one person to another, rather than focus on one particular person and stare at that particular person. And secondly, we in this manner we can involve the audience in a presentation. We can also develop an interest in the audience towards the presentation, and also we are interacting in this manner. So here is an sample over here. As you can see, the presenter is explaining, the bar diagram, the pie diagram, and the audience, they're listening very attentively to the explanation. So having said this, I would like to thank all of you for your patient listening. I hope you have understood the tips of effective presentation. In case you have any doubts, you can always write to me in the comment section. Thank you once again.